evening traveler. Pull your chair in a little closer to the iron stove and let the late-night valley breeze settle down outside against the logs. My name is Sheriff Silas, and after spending all these years wearing a silver star on the frontier, I have come to realize that the most tangled human puzzles are rarely solved by shouting matches, fast guns, or chasing shadows across the open desert. More often than not, they are solved right here within four walls by paying close attention to the quiet habits of ordinary people whose lives have quietly slipped off balance. Take what happened over in the township of Red Pine just 2 winters ago, when the heavy mountain snows had cut us off from the outside world for nearly 3 solid weeks. Red Pine was a quiet community known mostly for its timber yards and hard-working families, but it was also home to an aging clockmaker named Master Ephraim, whose shop sat right at the corner of Main Street and Foundry Lane. Ephraim had spent 40 years meticulously repairing pocket watches, church bells, and mantel clocks for half the territory, and people trusted him with their most cherished family heirlooms just as naturally as they trusted the sun to rise over the ridge. One bitter Tuesday morning, when the snow was piled chest-high against the storefront windows, Ephraim's heavy oak front door was found unlocked, and a small iron floor safe built into the back room wall had been cleanly emptied of 500 gold coins collected from the town winter relief fund. The town councilman, Mr. Vance, came pounding on my office door just after dawn, looking pale and frantic, stamping the heavy snow off his boots while demanding an immediate posse to track down whatever desperate drifter had broken into the shop during the howling blizzard. Vance insisted that nobody in Red Pine could possibly have committed such a crime because everyone in the village had been safely snowed in behind bolted doors while the gale blew at 40 miles an hour. He pointed a gloved finger straight toward a traveling blacksmith's apprentice named Noah, who had taken shelter in the town boarding house only a week before the storm hit. People always love a convenient stranger to blame when fear gets the better of their common sense. In my line of work, you never hang an innocent man's reputation on tavern talk and panic. I told Vance I would walk down to the clockmaker's shop myself to examine the premises before we started throwing accusations around, because truth is a quiet thing that leaves behind its own footprint if you know how to look for it. When I stepped through the front door of the clockmaker's shop, the air was thick with the rich scent of machine oil, brass filings, and cured leather. Dozens of wall clocks were ticking in steady unison, creating a rhythmic heartbeat that filled the quiet room. Master Ephraim was sitting quietly at his workbench with his jeweler's loupe pressed to his eye, gently adjusting the delicate balance wheel of an antique silver pocket watch as if nothing unusual had happened at all. When I greeted him, he looked up with a tired, melancholic expression and invited me to warm my hands by his small cast-iron stove. I asked him about the missing relief fund gold, and he confirmed that the iron floor safe had indeed been emptied sometime during the night, while the blizzard raged outside. When I asked him if he had heard any strange noises or forced entries, he shook his head slowly and pointed out that the heavy oak floorboards surrounding the safe showed absolutely no tool marks, splintered wood, or pry bar scars. An outsider breaking into a strange building during a blinding snowstorm would have needed heavy crowbars, lanterns, and plenty of clumsy guesswork, leaving behind raw timber damage and trampled snow. But the wooden planks around the safe were as clean as a whistle, and the iron combination dial had been spun open with the smooth, practiced touch of someone who knew the exact 4-digit sequence by heart. I walked over to the back room and inspected the floor safe myself, running my fingers along the heavy brass rim. The safe door was wide open, and resting right beside the empty metal threshold was a tiny brass gear-cutting file that looked like it had been dropped in a hurry. Master Ephraim watched me from his workbench and sighed heavily, finally laying down his tweezers on the green felt mat. He admitted that only 2 people in the entire territory knew the secret combination to that iron floor safe, himself, and his devoted grandniece Clara, who lived just across the lane and helped him manage his account ledgers every Friday afternoon. The thought of Clara being involved in anything dishonest made my chest heavy, because she was known throughout Red Pine for her gentle kindness and her tireless work at the community church kitchen. A good investigator doesn't ignore physical facts just because they point towards someone well-liked. I asked Ephraim if Clara had visited the shop recently, and he confirmed that she had stopped by just the evening before the blizzard struck to deliver a fresh batch of winter firewood and help him update the quarterly repair ledgers. Instead of jumping to hasty conclusions or heading straight over to Clara's cottage through the deep snowdrifts, I decided to look closer at the account books resting on the front desk. I opened the heavy leather ledger to the previous week's entries and began cross-referencing the repair payments, material purchases, and charity donations with the cash drawer receipts. That was when I noticed a peculiar pattern of discrepancy that had nothing to do with the missing relief fund gold. Over the past 6 months, there were dozens of subtle ledger adjustments where substantial sums of money had been quietly noted as paid out to a traveling timber merchant named Miller who supposedly supplied specialized German brass springs for the grandfather clocks. When I checked the workshop inventory shelves, there wasn't a single new German brass spring to be found anywhere in the building. Every clock in the shop was still being repaired using standard local iron wire and salvaged parts. Someone had been siphoning small amounts of money from the shop accounts month after month, creating a massive financial deficit that was about to be exposed by the upcoming annual town council audit scheduled for the very first week of spring. Instead of jumping to hasty conclusions or heading straight over to Clara's cottage through the deep snowdrifts, I decided to look closer at the account books resting on the front desk. I opened the heavy leather ledger to the previous week's entries and began cross-referencing the repair payments, material purchases, and charity donations with the cash drawer receipts. That was when I noticed a peculiar pattern of discrepancy that had nothing to do with the missing relief fund gold. Over the past 6 months, there were dozens of subtle ledger adjustments where substantial sums of money had been quietly noted as paid out to a traveling timber merchant named Miller who supposedly supplied specialized German brass springs for the grandfather clocks. When I checked the workshop inventory shelves, there wasn't a single new German brass spring to be found anywhere in the building. Every clock in the shop was still being repaired using standard local iron wire and salvaged parts. Someone had been siphoning small amounts of money from the shop accounts month after month, creating a massive financial deficit that was about to be exposed by the upcoming annual town council audit scheduled for the very first week of spring. I closed the ledger softly, walked back over to Master Ephraim's workbench, and asked him to tell me the honest truth about his finances. The old clockmaker lowered his head, his frail shoulders trembling slightly as the full weight of his secret finally caught up with him. He confessed that he hadn't lost the relief fund gold to a midnight burglar from out of town at all. He explained that a smooth-talking land speculator from the eastern cities had tricked him into signing a fraudulent mortgage contract on his workshop property the previous autumn, threatening to foreclose and throw him out onto the street unless he paid off a staggering debt of $500 by the end of winter. Desperate to protect his life's work and too proud to ask his family or the town council for help, Ephraim had quietly used the town winter relief fund gold to pay off the speculator, hoping he could somehow replace the coins before anyone noticed the shortage. When the blizzard struck and he realized the annual audit was only days away, panic had set in. In a desperate attempt to cover his tracks and make the missing gold look like an outside robbery, he had staged the break-in himself, unlocked his own floor safe, tossed the coins into a canvas sack, and buried them beneath the floorboards of his coal shed out back before reporting the crime to the authorities. We sat in silence for a long moment, while the wall clocks ticked steadily around us, and the snow continued to drift softly against the windowpanes outside. I told Ephraim that while his loyalty to his workshop was understandable, breaking the law and deceiving his neighbors was a heavy burden that would only lead to greater sorrow. I walked out to the coal shed with a small iron shovel, uncovered the canvas sack containing the intact gold coins exactly where he said it would be, and brought the money back inside. We didn't need to involve a circuit judge or ruin the old man's lifetime of honorable service with a public trial, because true justice on the frontier often requires a delicate balance of accountability, restitution, and mercy. I helped Ephraim draft a formal letter of confession and explanation to the town council, and together we returned every single coin to the relief fund before the snow even melted from the rooftops. When the town council read the letter, they realized that the old clockmaker had made a foolish mistake under immense pressure, but since every penny was recovered safely, They agreed to let him pay off his administrative debt through community service and clock repairs for the local schoolhouse. The fire in the iron stove is burning low now, casting long, peaceful amber shadows across the rustic wooden floorboards of my office. The valley outside is wrapped in a deep, quiet stillness, and the stars are shining bright and clear over the frontier ridge. You see, partner, people often think that solving mysteries requires a fast gun and a loud voice, but more often than not it is just about checking the account ledgers, listening to the quiet tick of the clock, and refusing to let panic cloud your judgment. Until our next case file is opened, keep your ledger clean, your heart steady, and your dealings honest. Good night, partner.